Hello, and welcome to my review of Seven, the 1995 crime mystery film. Now, before I get into my review, let me give you a basic overview of the plot. So essentially, we have two main characters. We have William Somerset, who's played by Morgan Freeman. So now, Somerset is a police detective on the way to retirement. It's actually his last week. He's got one more week left before he's meant to retire. He's paired with another detective named David Mills, who's played by Brad Pitt. Now, Mills has been transferred from somewhere else. He's a lot younger, more emotional than Somerset. And they kind of work together and start investigating a murder. Now, as the week progresses, more and more people turn up dead, and it soon becomes evident that they're linked, because they start to find all these murders have something in common. And that's that they're all based on the 7 deadly sins. The murders themselves are very gruesome and unique, and they relate to these sins. So, for example, the first victim relates to the sin of gluttony. So he was killed by being force-fed spaghetti until his stomach literally burst. Now, over the course of the week, Mills and Somerset continue to try and investigate these murders to try and find the person responsible and put an end to the murders. But they don't do a very good job of that, because the adversary is incredibly intelligent and methodical and patient. He's had everything planned out, and everything basically goes according to his plan, with one exception. At some point, Somerset gets the idea to contact someone he knows from the bureau, and he gets some information that helps him to track down where the murderer could be. Now, this is very illegal, the way he's gone about doing it, but it ends up paying off because they get the address of the murderer, and they go there to investigate. And it's while they're outside the door, the murderer ends up turning up with his groceries. Upon seeing that there's 2 police there, he pulls out his gun and shoots at them, and then he tries to flee. And there's a long, extended action scene with the cops trying to chase him down, which ends in him eventually getting away. There's a moment where he knocks Mills to the ground and he puts his gun to his head. And although he has the chance to kill Mills then and there, he decides against it. As for what happens next, well, I'll let you watch the movie to find that out. It's like over 25 years old, but I don't want to give it away. Now, one thing the movie does really well is sets up the whole tone and setting. See, we're told throughout the movie, particularly by Somerset, how apathetic and uncaring the city has sort of become. And this is part of the reason why he wants to leave, why he wants to retire. Now, we're told this several times, but the movie also does a good job of showing it as well. The opening scene actually does a really good job of this. Somerset is at a crime scene where the wife killed the husband. Now, Somerset shows concern and asks if the kid saw the murder, and the other cop with him sort of goes off at him like, oh, who cares? He's dead anyway, it doesn't matter. And this scene does a really good job of showing us Somerset's character, as well as the sort of uncaring attitude of the rest of the police department, and by extension, the city, because they both sort of share the same attitude. The movie continues to show us this when the plot begins proper. Detective Mills and Somerset both investigate the first murder that's committed by the villain. See, the thing is, when they first go in there, they're not even 100% sure if the victim is dead or not, because the other cops haven't even gone in to look or check for a pulse. They've just seen that he's lying there with his face in a bowl of spaghetti and he's not moved for 40 minutes. And when questioned about why they haven't gone in, the cops are very defensive and very uncaring. One of the main themes is about this terrible apathy, this uncaring attitude that everyone in the city seems to have. And Somerset's character is actually sort of intertwined with this whole theme. See, one of the reasons he's retiring, or at least the reason he tells us he's retiring, is he sees just how terrible and apathetic this city is, and he doesn't want to be a part of it anymore. See, he discussed the apathy, that this attitude that the city has, but he sort of embodies it as well because he wants to get away. He even acknowledges that he is sort of part of that problem as well. After the first murder, he sort of knows that this is a big thing, it's going to go on for a while. He doesn't want that to be his last case, so he wants to give it away and work on something different. Now the main characters, they contrast each other quite well. Somerset is a lot calmer and less emotional than Mills. Without a doubt, what steals the show the most is the villain and of course his murders. Now the interesting thing is, for most of the film, we don't actually see the villain. In fact, we never even learn his real name. He's known as John Doe, which is obviously not his real name. We don't even see him until quite late into the movie. But you don't really need to see him because we learn so much from just seeing his work. The murders in 7 are truly unique and gruesome and horrifying. I already talked about the first victim, who's related to the sin of gluttony. But some of the other murders as well are very unique and creative. One of his victims from later in the film, which is related to the sin of pride, he gets this woman and cuts her nose off, and then glues 2 things in her hands. In one hand, a bottle of sleeping pills, and in the other, a phone. And she has the option of calling for help and living, but being disfigured for the rest of her life, or she can take the pills and end her own life. And she chooses the pills. Now, it's things like this which are so immensely fucked up, but they also, importantly, they tell a story. They're not done without reason. They tell a story and it establishes the villain's motivations. If you haven't seen this film already, I highly recommend it. I will say though that it's obviously a very graphic film. It is rated R, and for good reason. It's very, very fucked up. So I would recommend viewer discretion for this one. However, it is truly an outstanding film. And the ending, which, again, I don't want to give it away, the ending is just amazing. It's a very well-crafted ending. And although he doesn't have a whole lot of screen time overall, the villain, John Doe, is very, very, very good. He's probably one of the best villains in cinema. Not the best, but one of the best. Also, this is a very minor thing, and it doesn't hugely affect the plot. But the fact that the whole story takes place over 7 days is quite cool, and each day is marked as well. Again, it doesn't add too much to the plot, but it's a neat little gimmick that ties into the whole 7 thing. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this review, and I hope you found it helpful. Again, I would highly recommend watching 7, assuming all the gruesome murders are not too much for you to stomach. Anyway, I will see you in the next video. Goodbye. Ernest Hemingway once wrote, "The world is a fine place and worth fighting for." I agree with the second part.